I'm Eddie Cannell.
And I'm Tom Cannell.
Welcome, everyone. This is the Mortgage Brothers podcast show.
And today we're going to talk about the loan status updates, known as LSUs. And this is not Louisiana State University Tigers podcast, but this is about the form that realtors use in order to, or that realtors have in order to give themselves an update so they can give their clients the update on their purchase.
If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, comment, and like, because we're always coming out with content to either help buyers, real estate agents, especially in Arizona, navigate through the lending process and the world of mortgage lending.
That's right.
So as a real estate agent, whether you have been licensed for 40 years or a couple months, the loan status update is something we want to really just kind of go right through and show from a lender's perspective what we're looking at.
Mm-hmm.
And let's just start right from the top here. The Arizona Association of Realtors has come out with this update. It's a part of the contract form. It's to help the real estate agents communicate to their buyers and sellers realistic expectations, and also help really disclose what's going on.
Right. And can you imagine having to create this from scratch? Like, okay, the buyer or the seller asks you, okay, what's the update on the loan, Mr. or Mrs. Agent? And be like, well, this is so nice. Just like the contract that Armless has, here is a form, literally line item by line item, numbered on what the updates could possibly be.
And Arizona is the only one with a loan status update like this that I'm aware of. In fact, Arizona has a lot of unique, I think, ways that they've handled real estate. They kind of stand out. They've kind of an innovator of disclosure. I think they've always kind of been ahead of the curve.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, Arizona, it's a unique form to our state. In fact, if you ask a lot of out-of-state lenders or online out-of-state for an LSU, they have no idea what the heck you're talking about.
Right.
All right. That's why it's always great staying local. Keep with the lender who knows the Arizona contract, and the Arizona pre-qualification form, and the LSU. So the LSU looks a lot like the Arizona pre-qualification form, right? Because if you have a buyer on the buying side, you're going to be asking for a pre-qualification form, and it looks a lot like the LSU. It's basically the same template where the lender's name, the company name, the loan officer's information, their license numbers, all up here on the top, their address, their email. And this is actually from a loan that I recently did. I just changed, I just took out some of the details for privacy. But the buyer's name goes on here. The close of escrow, the residence address goes here, or the home address. It'll ask, is the buyer?
And it's actually labeled pre-qualification information. Mm-hmm. So numbers, what is it? 13 all the way down to.
It's 40.
Yeah, all the way down.
36 probably.
To about 36. That's all directly from the pre-qual form. The biggest thing that actually changes there is on the interest rate. Line 930, a lot of times we'll put market. And agents will ask us, why are you putting market? Why don't you put the interest rate? Yeah. Well, because at the time that the pre-qual is generated, there is a certain interest rate that we have, that we pre-qualed them, but markets could go way up or they could go way down. Especially today, we know what interest rates are doing. So it's not until we get to the LSU state or status that we end up plugging in what rate we did lock in at. That rate hypothetically could change. The borrower could say, hey, listen, at the end, let's go ahead and get a little bit of a credit. So let's change that interest rate.
Yeah.
But
so it's going to go through and ask, whether the borrower's married or not, whether or not there's a sale contingency, conventional loan versus VA, FHA, primary residence, or an investment, second home. Again, and then right down here on line 32 through 36, this is the documentation. I mean, this is what you want to really be looking for is, has the lender received the documentation for income and assets? I mean, not only do you want to see that ideally on an Arizona pre-qualification form before you accept an offer, but definitely in the LSU status or stage. If you're in process and the lender does not have these important documents and they've marked no, for example, this was this is not. So you see where it says gift documentation? If you see this, you're going to want to question: is that received or not? You know,
Right,
You've been
right.
receiving this.
Is the gift being denied?
Yeah.
Or, is the gift giver saying, I've changed my mind. I'm not actually going to give the buyer the gift that we initially said we'd give them.
So if you see something in the no column marked, that's a red flag, or at least something that you should be asking the lender to address and give you kind of an update on. You want to see either an NA or a yes. You don't want to see a box marked no.
Right. And every once in a while during the pre-qual process, if this is from the listing agent side, the buyer sees a home that they fall in love with, they're able to provide, pay stubs and W-2s and the down payment and the credit, but they're not able to produce the personal tax returns yet. We'll select no, but that's not terrible.
Yeah.
But what that means is that would be something you'd want to stay on top of to make sure that we eventually get, because we could issue a pre-qual based on pay stubs and W-2s and down payment.
Right, because for example, if you see 2 no's next to personal tax returns and corporate, well, number one, that means they're self-employed. Someone's self-employed. There's some reason why the lender's asking for it, and it's usually something you wanted to make sure to address. So again, this is what you want to see, that they have everything. And sometimes we don't need tax returns.
Yeah.
So you'll see NA like that. Anyway, I'm going to go through here. Buyers will sign on the bottom. And a lot of listing agents will ask the buyers to sign it, but a lot of them won't.
A lot of borrowers will not sign that, but there are listing agents that are very firm on that. Please have the buyer sign.
So here's page 2 of the LSU. It's actually a 2-page document. So this is the last page. The front page is really it just mirrors the pre-qualification form. But now we get into the timeline events. It's asking questions like, has the lender received the contract? And what you're looking for over here is, okay, you have a yes or no box, date completed, and then the initials. You want to see a date completed and initials on every line item here. Was the loan estimate sent? What's the date? Here's an example. Payment for the appraisal has been received. In this borrower case that I had a couple weeks ago, it was a waiver. No appraisal. It was an appraisal waiver. So no payment was necessary. So if you do see a box no checked for this, you just want to make sure you see some type of notes, or you kind of, if you see no, why is it no?
Right. Why
These
is it
are
no?
These are waivers. There was no need to order an appraisal. But we just go through. We've identified the down payment source. We've locked in the rate, and there's an expiration date. You want to look at, is that expiration date in the LSU, is that going to cover the close of escrow date?
Right. And that's a great call. And don't panic if it doesn't. That is if you're with a mortgage, brothers, LO, because sometimes in our actual loans, in order to get the best pricing possible, we'll lock a certain rate, and when we may, need to get a couple days extra, at no cost.
Yeah.
But that is something very, very interesting that you brought up. I didn't know we were going to bring that up, but yes, that's critical to keep an eye on.
All right. So the lender received initial documentations in here. So did we get everything from the borrower? And that's really on page 1 that will kind of show us that, did we get all their income and assets? And let's look at what's next. So appraisal, no appraisal received because we have a waiver. Closing disclosure. As real estate agents, you'll notice that the closing, especially depending on how long you've been in business doing real estate, the old settlement statement was what you would receive, and you would always get a copy of the settlement statement before a buyer would go in and sign. Well, today the closing disclosure goes out to the buyers, and a lot of times as real estate agents, you don't even see it. Okay, and so you can ask the lender to get a copy, but a lot of times these things are happening in the background. The closing disclosure goes out, also known as the CD. Has the buyer received it? That's it's a very important part of our process, making sure that the CD goes out and signed by the borrower, acknowledged. And you want to see those dates in there, initials. Then there's this underwriting and approval section here. Has the lender submitted the loan? Was it approved with conditions? Has the buyer, this last one here on 62, buyer has loan approval without PTD prior to doc conditions. That is the very important last stage That means you have final approval. That's what that really means. You have final approval, and we're ready to go to loan docs.
Yeah, when you see that, holy cow, that's the guns blazing in the air, excitement. A point in time when you do have that loan approval without any PTD conditions.
Lender, so closing. Now you're getting to the closing. A lot of agents, let's say listing agents are, because their listing agents are really the primary person looking at this LSU, I would say, because they're reporting to the seller. The buyer's kind of in the process with the lender, but it's the seller, right? Just kind of going back to LSU.
The seller every day. How are we doing? How are we doing? How are we doing?
Yeah, the seller's in the dark. The only thing that gives them any kind of insight or light into the deal is the LSU. And so they're looking at this. But when we get to the closing stage, I don't think there's so many LSU requests. A lot of times listing agents will stop asking for updates. But I think it's important to at least follow through with the transaction.
Yeah. There's lots of communication between the title company and the borrower, the title company and the real estate agent, the title, and the lender, in terms of reconciling and all the different dates and all the different, parts and pieces, the prepaids and whatnot. So there's a lot happening at the very end.
So what you're looking for is that all prior to funding. So there's prior to doc conditions. Those are like if you have a final approval and the documents can go out, but they're called PTF, prior to funding. Some lenders will actually give you an approval, send out the documents, but they're still waiting on a prior to funding condition. Like, and one pay stub is remaining because they got a new job or.
Yeah, I was going to say that. It typically comes down to employment, and they're like, well, why is it not approved yet? Why do we have everything out, but yet there's one more item? Well, sometimes, timing is just, critical, and we're waiting for that one more human resources document to show us, a certain start date or a certain, pay stub.
Yeah, and sometimes they're verbal verifications of employment, within 24 hours of closing. And but for essentially the last part of this is these last two items. Funds are ordered and sent to title, and then it's one thing to order the funds, right? To order the wire, and then you're waiting for title to receive it. I mean, how many agents have been out there and they're just waiting for the title company to receive the wire?
Oh yeah.
And so
and title companies, how many wires are they getting a day?
Right. I mean, at the end of the month, they could get, dozens and dozens.
Dozens and dozens. And every once in a while, it'll take them a little while to be like, hey, let me look. You're like, what do you mean, let me look? We just sent you a wire for $428,000.
Yeah.
But it's the truth. They're getting a ton of those wires during the day.
That's the end of the LSU, line 69. And then the loan officer should sign this. And again, this is something I think on a good, it's probably a good schedule to have it once a week. That's what we do in our team. We send it out usually on Wednesday. Wednesday is our LSU day. Every agent gets the LSUs. We send them out to the buyer's agents, the listing agents. And so, anyway, I think it's a good practice to send it out, do that. If you have any questions at all on your transactions, LSUs, pre-qualification forms, anything at all, we can help. Be sure to reach out to the Mortgage Brothers team, call us and email us.
All right. Thank you, folks.
Thank you for watching the Mortgage Brothers podcast. If you have any questions, email us at team@azmortgagebrothers.com. And if you like this content, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the Mortgage Brothers team.